All right, back for another pastoral workshop. This week I want to talk about commentaries. We worked through correlation this past week and how helpful it was to be broadly and deeply informed on any topic or passage that we're discussing and studying, and how the Bible informs itself and interprets itself, and how it's very rare that we'll have to go outside of the Bible to interpret anything in the Bible, and talked about some skills and practical helps in that. But occasionally, and even as a checks and balances, it's helpful to avail ourselves of some of the resources that we have in church history and in our culture and in our day of gifted teachers and scholars and Bible students who have read the passage and studied the passage before we have. And that's thousands of years now of resources that we have available to us, and then great online technology to check that our work, our observations and interpretations are factoring in everything that's out there, that we haven't missed anything, to push back on what our observations and interpretations are so that we can stay safe and balanced, but at the same time doing the hard work for ourselves. That these external resources that God has gifted us with as Bible students and Christians are not to replace our own Bible observation and Bible reading and interpretation, but instead to supplement it. And so commentaries are the resource that I brought up in the sermon, and I want to spend our time talking about today. Maybe it would be helpful to do this is break down commentaries into two categories. And the two categories are, you can choose a commentary based on its length or its packaging, if I could say it that way. And then another category is you can throw commentaries in, or divide commentaries up into the type of content that they're presenting or the goal of writing that particular commentary. And I'll explain what that means here in a minute. So first, let's talk about size. There are single volume commentaries. And remember, a commentary is a scholar, a Bible student, giving you the overview of the book, the author, it'll discuss authorship, it'll outline the book, time, purpose, genre, any sort of relevant general introductory discussions of that book, and then get into the verse by verse interpretation and discussion of every verse in that book of the Bible or the Bible. And so a single volume commentary is, as you can imagine, just one volume, but it covers every book. So that is forcing that volume to be fairly general, fairly broad. They can't cover everything. They don't even try. And so that's the maybe a negative or a limit to that type of commentary. The benefit is that it's cheap, right? You get every book of the Bible having some sort of introductory discussion and commenting, but just in one volume. So you got all of it there, and it's cheaper and it's accessible, but the negative is it's going to be a pretty surfacey, skimmy, over the top of each book. The other is a multi-volume commentaries, and this would be a commentary over multiple volumes, as you could tell. I don't have a single volume commentary, or I would show you that. I just don't really use that. But I do have multi-volume commentaries, and so this is 5 volumes through the Bible by J. Vernon McGee. He's a radio preacher. It's a very popular level, which I'll just explain here in a minute. But there's 5 volumes, and he covers the entire Bible in five books. You've got another one here. This is one book of the Bible in multi-volumes. And so this is the book of Romans, these black books here. And there are 4 volumes in which Donald Gray Barnhouse, who I've quoted this past Sunday, he preached through the book. And so he's going to break down the book of Romans verse by verse through 4 volumes. And so that's multiple volumes, one book. So that's an opportunity for you. And that's, again, a little more accessible to go through the entire book in 5 volumes, but still limited somewhat, but more in depth than a single volume. And then there are books of commentary on each book of the Bible. And so here, for example, is the book of Ephesians in one volume. So the entire book of Ephesians is bigger than, he's covered 1 Corinthians through Revelation in this volume, and Ephesians is covering just one book of the Bible, and look, it's already bigger. And so it is a lot more in depth, and it's going to really get into the verses at a more detailed level. So that's one way to decide what kind of commentary do I want. Do I want all the books of the Bible in one volume, or just a handful of volumes, or do I want to get really in depth in a book of the Bible that I'm studying, which is what I'm going to suggest. But that's a choice you can make. Second category is type of commentary by content or goal, meaning that every commentary has to make a decision: who is our intended audience, what is the type of material and amount of material that we're trying to get across to the reader. And I've broken this up into three types. The first is a popular commentary, meaning it is devotional in its intent, that it's designed for the average person in church who's not going to be preaching and teaching and necessarily needing to do an in-depth study. It's going to be very applicational, so that as you're reading the Bible, as you're studying the Bible, it's going to give you some content on the verses, on the chapter, on the passage that will help you to apply it, to live it, to incorporate it into your life so that you love Jesus more and follow Jesus better. That's its intent. It's going to avoid any technical discussions or interacting with any controversial interpretations or disputes within the text. It's just a popular level, devotional type of commentary. Second is pastoral. First off, a devotional, I give an illustration or an example of that. The NIV applicational commentary would be a popular level commentary. And this series in particular is pretty good depending on the book. Some are absolutely fantastic and are very helpful for teaching and preaching and in-depth even Bible study. Others are just trash and just of no use whatsoever. And so, be careful when you come to a series of books, commentaries on every book of the Bible, that you don't just one-size-fits-all type of thing. It really does depend on the author and the book and what's going on there. And so that would be an example of a popular level commentary. Another category or type of commentary is pastoral, meaning it's designed to equip and get content across to the people who preach and teach the Bible. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a church or in a seminary setting. It can be a Sunday school class or a Bible study in a home, but it is going to equip the person who's reading to say, okay, this is what you're observing, this is what you're interpreting, and here's some applications, but here's maybe a proposed outline on how to deliver a message from that passage or that book. And so the Expositor's Bible Commentary would be an example of that, and this is a whole series. So this is a multi-volume commentary. This series has 11 volumes. This volume covers Ephesians through Philemon, and so you can see it's a little in-depth, but it's designed particularly for people like me who have my job, who are going to teach and preach the Bible. So that's a type. And then the third sort of category within the type of commentaries we're talking about is technical or critical. And so Ephesians, this commentary by Harold Hoehner, he taught me Greek at seminary, and he did an entire, he spent like his life, it's like 20-year pursuit of writing a technical, critical commentary on the book of Ephesians, and it is excellent. It's probably the best commentary on Ephesians, most thorough, and it's going to assume that you're conversant with the original languages. It is going to interact with scholars in the field. It's going to lay out every possible interpretation of every possible issue within the book and really get into depth. Any textual criticism issues, so if there's variant readings in the Greek, they're going to say this is why this is the best reading. He's going to describe all of that and trace the commentary of Ephesians, in that case Ephesians, through church history and interact with different scholars over the last couple thousand years. And so it's a very, very in-depth, and that's a technical, critical commentary. So all of that should be in play in deciding what kind of commentary do you want to buy or to read or to use. Is this popular? Am I going to use this to teach? Am I going to use this to do critical study? So obviously in my preaching through books of the Bible, I use all of them. So I try to get the best commentary on that book in all of those categories, so that I'm sort of fully formed in my study and then articulation of the book as I go through it. So, practical suggestions I want to give you as an ender here is, first, I would avoid buying commentaries as a series. I already hinted at that with the NIV applicational series, but I have yet to find a series of a commentary series in which, over multiple volumes, they cover every book of the Bible, in which every book that is being discussed, that's good, that commentary covers all of them equally well. Meaning that the best commentary on Genesis and the best commentary on Romans and the best commentary on Psalms are in all likelihood not in the same series. And so you've bought a series in which some of it will be really good, the other won't be, and so you've kind of wasted time and shelf space and money on stuff you're not going to need or use. Instead, I would suggest that you buy single commentaries on single books. So just, if I'm going to study Ephesians, that I find what is the best commentary for how I'm going to use Ephesians on that's out there that I'll use. And so then I'll just fill up my bookshelf with multiple different types of commentaries and from different series with different goals, and eventually get every 66 book, or each of the 66 books have the best commentary on each of those books on my shelf. And so that's kind of the way I do it. It takes a little longer, it'll cost more money over the long run, but every one of those commentaries will be excellent. And so that's kind of how I would encourage you to approach that. Now, the next question you should be asking is, how do I know what's the best commentary on each book of the Bible? Well, that's a great question. There's two sites out there, or one main site, and then two other sites that are pastoral that I would point you to, and I'll put it in the description of the video. The first is bestcommentaries.com. So that's easy to remember, bestcommentaries.com. And you can go in there and pick what book of the Bible you want to know what the best commentary on that book is, and it will give you a huge list. So I've got Romans pulled up here, and there's I don't know, over 100 books of commentaries listed, and they are ranked in order, and those rankings are determined by scholars, people who write journal reviews, site users that these site developers trust. They're in our camp, Reformed, Biblical, Evangelical group, and most of them, again, scholars, seminary professors, linguists, etc., who are voting on the commentaries. And so that will give you a list of them rated by those scholars, and then even give you the type. They have reviews, and you can see exactly what this is, and it will even take you to the sites where you can buy and compare prices in order to buy them. And so I would start there. Also, Ligonier Ministries and Desiring God Ministries also have a list in which you can pick the book of the Bible that you want to get a commentary on, and it will list out their top 2, 3, 4, 5, and a brief description of what that commentary is doing, their strengths, their weaknesses, and how it can be used. And so I usually go to those three sites in order to decide what commentary I'm going to buy before I start to study a book of the Bible. A free resource that's out there, again, I'll put this link in our video notes, is soniclight.com. That's a terrible name for a website, soniclight.com. It is by Dr. Tom Constable, who is one of my professors, and he has put online for free his complete study notes of every book of the Bible that he uses in his class, and they are very well done. They're extensively collating all of the writings and the quotes and the stuff that he's learning from his commentary work and his observation, interpretation, and application, and it's free. I can't tell you how many pastors and preachers that I know who regularly get on soniclight.com and work through his commentary in their study and their preparation to teach. And again, it's free. So that's awesome. One last thing I'll add. This isn't necessarily commentaries, although they can be, but whenever I study a book of the Bible, I try to get someone in church history who has written sermons on those verses that I'm studying, or commentary on those verses on which I'm studying. Really old ones, hopefully. So this is John Calvin's sermons on Ephesians. When I went through James, I went through Thomas Manton and his writings and commentary through the book of James. And so I try to get outside of my culture and outside of my day and go into really solid, reformed, biblically robust Bible teachers or commentators, and sort of connect myself to church history and allow God to expose some things that in the text that I wouldn't see just because of my day. I'm just so enveloped in my moment that people 400, 500, 600, 700 years ago were seeing things in the text just very difficult for me to see, and that's always helpful. So I would add that to your diet and your consuming of reading as well. Hopefully that's helpful. Send me questions or comments, anything I can do to help serve you guys on that.